Imagine driving a pickup so underpowered that a loaded shopping cart could beat you in a drag race. And believe me, this is just one of the disasters we'll be looking at today. Get ready to discover the 12 most hated American pickups of all time. Trucks that were so poorly designed, so unreliable, and so despised that they left a permanent stain on their manufacturers' reputations. These mechanical nightmares didn't just disappoint their owners, they emptied their wallets and tested their patience to the breaking point. Number 1. 1957 Dodge Sweptside. In our Museum of Automotive Horrors, the 1957 Dodge Sweptside stands as a monument to style over substance. This catastrophe on wheels emerged when Dodge desperately needed a stylish pickup to compete with Ford and Chevy, but lacked the budget for proper development. Their solution? Take the rear fenders from their station wagon and graft them onto a standard pickup truck. The result was a Frankenstein-like creation with awkward proportions and compromised functionality. The Sweptside's bed was so narrow that it could barely accommodate a standard refrigerator box, making it essentially useless for actual work. Its chassis, never designed for this hybrid configuration, created a truck that handled like a boat in rough seas. The angled fenders looked stylish in advertisements, but created massive blind spots that made parking a nightmare. Despite its fashionable appearance, the Sweptside was a commercial disaster, with fewer than 1,300 units sold in its first year. Dodge had created a truck that was simultaneously impractical, unreliable, and overpriced. A perfect storm of bad engineering that would haunt the company for years. Number 2. 1976 Ford Courier. While Ford dominated the full-size truck market, their attempt to enter the compact pickup segment with the Courier revealed a shocking lack of understanding about American truck buyers. This Mazda-built disappointment was powered by a laughably weak 1.8-liter engine that produced just 74 horsepower. Barely enough to move the vehicle when empty, let alone with any cargo. Drivers joked that its acceleration should be measured with a calendar rather than a stopwatch. The Courier's tiny dimensions might have been acceptable if it offered exceptional fuel economy, but even that modest expectation was betrayed. Its inefficient carburetor and primitive engineering delivered fuel consumption that was only marginally better than much larger trucks. Interior comfort was an afterthought, with seats that felt like park benches and a cabin so narrow that two adults couldn't sit side by side without intimate contact. The final insult was its catastrophic rust problems. Couriers in northern states sometimes developed perforations in the body panels within 2 years. Ford dealers were so embarrassed by this model that many refused to prominently display it, instead hiding these mechanical weaklings at the back of their lots, hoping no one would notice them. Number 3. 1982 Chevrolet S10 Diesel. Chevrolet's response to the fuel crisis seemed brilliant on paper. Take their popular new S10 compact pickup and offer it with a fuel-efficient diesel engine. In execution, it became one of the most regrettable chapters in Chevy truck history. The 2.2-liter Isuzu diesel engine produced a pathetic 58 horsepower and 93 pound-feet of torque, numbers that would be unimpressive even in a garden tractor. This underpowered nightmare turned every highway on-ramp into a white-knuckle experience as the truck struggled to reach merging speeds. But the real problems began after you purchased one. The engine suffered from catastrophic head gasket failures, often before reaching 30,000 miles. The fuel injection system was so delicate that even slightly contaminated diesel could cause complete failure, leaving owners stranded. Cold weather starting was so problematic that many owners resorted to keeping electric heaters plugged into their engines overnight just to have a chance of starting in the morning. The truck became a rolling advertisement for the dangers of rushing unproven technology to market. GM's warranty costs skyrocketed as dealers found themselves replacing major components on virtually every S10 diesel sold, leading to the engine option being quietly discontinued after just 2 years. But the damage to Chevrolet's reputation lasted much longer. Number 4. 1960 Studebaker Champ. Studebaker's desperate attempt to remain relevant in the truck market resulted in perhaps the strangest-looking pickup ever to roll off an American assembly line. The Champ was cobbled together from mismatched parts, a passenger car cab awkwardly mounted on a truck chassis that dated back to 1949. This unholy marriage created proportions so bizarre that the truck looked like it had been assembled by someone who'd never actually seen a pickup before, only heard one described. The problems weren't just aesthetic. The car-based cab was too narrow for the truck frame, creating an unsettling overhang when viewed from the front. This mismatch meant that every bump and pothole was transmitted directly to the driver, making even short trips punishing. The steering was dangerously vague, with so much play in the wheel that keeping the Champ in its lane required constant attention and adjustment. Mechanical reliability was equally disappointing. The transmission frequently jumped out of gear on inclines, and the electrical system seemed designed by someone with a personal vendetta against consistency. One owner famously complained that his headlights worked perfectly, except when it was dark. Despite innovative features like sliding side panels in the bed, the Champ became a symbol of Studebaker's decline and a truck that only the most dedicated brand loyalists would suffer to own. Number 5. 1972. Ford Courier. First generation. Ford's first venture into the mini-truck market was the 1972 Courier, a rebadged Mazda B series that showcased everything wrong with rushed badge engineering. This mechanical disaster arrived with a puny 1.8-liter engine that wheezed out just 74 horsepower, completely inadequate for American driving conditions. Owners quickly discovered that highway passing maneuvers required planning several miles in advance, and hills became geographical obstacles to be feared rather than driven over. What made the Courier truly detestable wasn't just its lack of power. It was the truck's complete inability to handle the basics expected of any pickup. Its meager payload capacity of just 1,400 pounds meant it could barely carry what many car trunks could hold. The frame was so prone to bending under load that owners reported their doors would no longer close properly after carrying heavy cargo. The braking system was woefully inadequate, with drums at all four corners that faded dramatically after just one hard stop. Perhaps most infuriating was the cooling system, which seemed designed specifically to overheat in summer traffic. Ford service departments became all too familiar with the sight of Couriers being towed in with blown head gaskets and warped cylinder heads. This pathetic excuse for a truck damaged Ford's reputation so severely that the company spent years rebuilding trust with compact truck buyers. Number 6. 1978 Dodge D50. The Dodge D50 stands as a textbook example of how not to enter a new market segment. Desperate to compete in the growing compact pickup category, but unwilling to invest in proper development, Dodge simply imported Mitsubishi's truck and slapped their badges on it. The result was a vehicle that satisfied neither Japanese efficiency standards nor American performance expectations. Its anemic 2.0-liter engine struggled to produce 93 horsepower, making it dangerously underpowered when merging onto highways. The D50's suspension seemed calibrated for completely empty loads, becoming dangerously bouncy with even modest cargo. Owners reported that the rear end would hop uncontrollably during emergency braking, a terrifying tendency that earned the truck the nickname the Dodge Dancer among unhappy owners. Interior quality was equally disappointing, with brittle plastics that cracked in cold weather and a heater that struggled to keep the cabin warm in anything below freezing temperatures. The final insult was Dodge's parts supply issues. When something inevitably broke, replacement components often took weeks to arrive from Japan, leaving owners with unusable vehicles and mounting frustration. The D50 became the automotive equivalent of a bad first date, a briefly embarrassing experience that both parties preferred to forget had ever happened. Number 7. 1987 Chevrolet RV Pickup. When Chevrolet proudly announced the addition of fuel injection to their full-size pickups in 1987, it seemed like a technological leap forward. Instead, it created one of the most frustrating ownership experiences in American truck history. The hastily developed throttle body injection system was primitive even by 1980 standards, essentially an electronically controlled carburetor that combined the reliability problems of both technologies while delivering the benefits of neither. Cold start problems became legendary among owners. Trucks would either flood with fuel or starve for it, but rarely start properly on the first try in anything below 40 degrees. Once running, the system's crude sensors caused surging, stalling, and hesitation that made smooth driving nearly impossible. The check engine light became a permanent fixture on dashboards, often illuminating for problems that mechanics couldn't diagnose with the primitive onboard computers. When the injection system inevitably failed, repair costs were astronomical compared to the carbureted models they replaced. The situation was so dire that a thriving aftermarket developed specifically to convert these trucks back to carburetors. GM's reputation suffered tremendously, as loyal customers who had trusted Chevrolet trucks for decades found themselves owning vehicles that were less reliable and more expensive to maintain than their predecessors. This bungled introduction of fuel injection became a cautionary tale throughout the industry of how not to implement new technology. Number 8. 1979 Dodge Ramcharger. While the Ford Bronco and Chevrolet Blazer found success in the emerging SUV market, the Dodge Ramcharger of 1979 showcased everything wrong with playing catch-up without proper engineering. This mechanical disaster featured a removable top that was so heavy that removing it required 3 strong adults, and so poorly designed that it almost always leaked even when properly installed. Owners joked that the Ramcharger came with built-in interior showers during rainstorms. The electrical system seemed designed by someone with a fundamental misunderstanding of how electricity works. Owners reported mysterious battery drains, intermittent starting problems, and dashboard lights that operated with complete independence from the switches that supposedly controlled them. Rust-proofing was apparently an alien concept to Dodge engineers, as body panels began showing orange bubbles within 2 years, even in mild climates. The 318 cubic inch V8 was reliable enough, but paired with a transmission that shifted with all the refinement of a sledgehammer hitting concrete. Worst of all was the transfer case on 4-wheel drive models, which had an alarming tendency to crack under moderate strain, leaving owners with massive repair bills. The Ramcharger became notorious for spending more time in repair shops than on the road, earning the bitter nickname Ram Stranded among its increasingly hostile ownership community. Number 9. 1980 Ford F-150. Ford's straight-six 300 cubic inch engine had earned a legendary reputation for reliability until the 1980 model year introduced the catastrophic variable Venturi carburetor. This complex nightmare was Ford's answer to emissions regulations, but it created problems far worse than the pollution it was designed to reduce. The overly complicated mechanism contained dozens of moving parts where a conventional carburetor had just a few, all but guaranteeing failure under normal use. These carburetors were so problematic that even Ford's own mechanics couldn't properly adjust them. Cold stalling, hot stalling, random stalling, owners never knew when their trucks might simply decide to quit running. The system created such poor throttle response that drivers reported pressing the accelerator and waiting a full second before anything happened, making traffic situations unpredictable and dangerous. Fuel economy, supposedly the system's main benefit, was actually worse than previous carburetors due to constant enrichment cycles as the mechanism tried to compensate for its own flaws. Ford dealers soon found themselves overwhelmed with angry customers demanding fixes for problems that couldn't be fixed, only temporarily mitigated. The situation became so dire that many owners paid to have their engines converted back to conventional carburetors, effectively admitting that decades-old technology worked better than Ford's innovation. This self-inflicted wound cost Ford dearly in customer loyalty and warranty claims, proving that sometimes the road to automotive hell is paved with engineering hubris. Number 10. 1957 Dodge Power Giant. Dodge's 1957 Power Giant represented perhaps the most misleading vehicle name in automotive history. Despite its impressive moniker, this truck was powered by the notoriously underpowered 315 cubic inch V8 that struggled to move the heavy truck even when empty. Fully loaded, the power giant transformed into the power snail, crawling up hills at speeds that would embarrass a child on a bicycle. This profound lack of power wasn't just disappointing. It was dangerous on highways and mountain roads. The power giant's troubles didn't end with its anemic engine. Its electrical system seemed designed specifically to fail at the most inconvenient moments, with wiring insulation that cracked prematurely and connections that corroded almost immediately after exposure to moisture. The truck's braking system was equally terrifying, with drums at all four corners that faded dramatically after just moderate use. Drivers quickly learned to plan their stopping distances as if they were piloting a fully loaded freight train rather than a pickup truck. Adding insult to injury was the power giant's legendary thirst for fuel. It somehow managed to combine terrible performance with catastrophic fuel economy, emptying both gas tanks and owner wallets with shocking efficiency. The truck became so notorious for its problems that many Dodge dealers quietly steered customers toward other models, effectively admitting that this giant was a massive mistake. Number 11. 1983 Ford Ranger Diesel. Ford's attempt to capitalize on diesel's fuel efficiency led to the creation of the 1983 Ranger Diesel, a truck so problematic it nearly killed the diesel pickup market single-handedly. Powered by a Mazda-sourced 2.2-liter diesel engine that produced a laughable 59 horsepower, this mechanical sloth couldn't get out of its own way. Highway merging became a white-knuckle exercise in terror as the truck struggled to reach 55 miles per hour with the pedal flat on the floor. The engine's problems extended far beyond its lack of power. Cold starting was so problematic that Ford actually installed a dedicated wait-to-start light that sometimes remained illuminated for over a minute in winter conditions, if the engine started at all. Many owners resorted to installing aftermarket block heaters just to have a fighting chance of starting on cold mornings. Oil leaks were so common that dealers began telling customers that if it's not leaking oil, it's out of oil. The injection pump, an extraordinarily expensive component, had a disturbing tendency to fail just after the warranty expired, leaving owners with repair bills that often exceeded $1,500. In $1983. Perhaps most irritating was that despite all these sacrifices for supposed efficiency, real-world fuel economy was only marginally better than gasoline models. The Diesel Ranger was discontinued after just 2 years, but its legendary awfulness lived on in the memories of unfortunate owners who had been seduced by promises of economy that never materialized. Number 12. 1999 Ford F-150. The 1999 F-150, with the 5.4-liter Triton V8, represents one of the most dramatic falls from grace in truck history. While the F-150 had built a reputation for reliability over decades, this particular powertrain combination damaged that legacy severely. The engine became infamous for ejecting spark plugs without warning, literally blowing them completely out of the cylinder head while driving. This catastrophic failure didn't just leave drivers stranded, it caused expensive damage to the cylinder heads that often cost thousands to repair. When the spark plugs weren't launching themselves into space, they were breaking off during routine maintenance, requiring specialized tools and hours of labor to extract the remnants. The ignition coils failed with such regularity that many owners simply kept spares in their glove compartments. Fuel economy was abysmal, even by V8 standards, with some owners reporting single-digit MPG in city driving. Perhaps most frustrating was the endemic oil pan gasket failure that left driveways across America permanently stained and owners constantly checking oil levels. The cherry on top of this mechanical disaster sundae was the automatic transmission, which developed harsh shifting and total failure at mileages as low as 80,000. This combination of problems was so severe that it created a measurable dip in F-150 resale values for years afterward. As used, truck buyers specifically avoided the 1999 model year. For a company whose trucks had been the backbone of American work for generations, this self-inflicted wound was particularly embarrassing. What do you think? Do you have your own pickup truck horror story? Maybe you've owned one of these mechanical disasters, or know someone who did. Tell us in the comments about your worst truck experience. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.